Hello! Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this little craft room cupboard. So we've got an opening door and two shelves here for storage. Now it's quite a small unit, and that's because I've designed it to fit specifically under the sloping wall in my doll's house craft room. And when I was designing this piece, I thought about having baskets in here again, but I decided to leave them empty and we'll add loads of lovely bright coloured accessories in there. But if you wanted to make little baskets to go in the openings here, then you could do that. Or you could make some little crates, or even just some little cardboard boxes using sort of patterned craft card or something like that, and that would look really nice in a craft room. So, as usual, the cutting list is in the description box below. So, let's get started. So begin by cutting all of the pieces needed apart from the door, and as usual we'll cut that after we've constructed the main unit so that we can get an exact size. But we're actually going to start now by attaching the mouldings to the top and bottom of the sides and the back piece. So let me clear some of these pieces out of the way and we'll get started. So I've got my glue here and a spare cocktail stick, and I've also got my clamps to hand to secure all the pieces once we've attached them. And I've also got here a spare piece of strip wood, which I'm going to use to make sure that the mouldings are right at the top of each piece of wood. So begin by applying glue along the back of the moulding. And as I always say, just check which is the nicest side of the piece. And then if you've got any little splinters or dents in the wood, you can glue that down. Always have the nicest piece facing forwards. So lay that along the top edge there. And then you can bring in your spare piece of strip and just push that against the top and push both pieces up against it. And then you know you're creating a nice flush edge. Carefully remove any excess glue. And then turn and do the same thing again. Like that. Again, bring in your strip. Oops. Give them a good press. Remove your excess. And then clamp them together. And if you don't have enough clamps, you can use clothes pegs or clothespins for this. But these clamps are really good, and they're nice and tight as well. And they are actually available in my Etsy shop as packs of 6. So that piece can then be left to dry, and you can do exactly the same thing with the back and the remaining side. So once the mouldings have dried into place, sand along each edge of each piece. So with your sandpaper flat on your work surface, just go along in the one direction like that, and I've already done mine. And that will just ensure that you've got nice flush edges along the side of each piece and none of the mouldings are overhanging. And what we're going to do now is attach a leg to each side of each side piece. So pop the back piece to one side for now, and then apply glue along each edge of each side, just making sure I've got rid of the sanding dust there. Pop that back down on your work surface, and then bring in the legs and press them into place so that you've got a nice flush edge along this top. And then we've got a little bit of foot overhanging at the bottom there. So press them into place like that, and then what I'm going to do is bring in a spare piece of strip wood and place that along the top, and then you know you've got a flush edge, and then press everything together and flat against your work surface as well. I'm just going to put that there and grab another piece. And then what you can do is also press the legs against the side using those spare strips. And what that does is, when you're sort of pushing them together with your fingers, you might pull the legs in, so you slightly angle them without realising. So if you use the strip wood, then you're pressing everything together and keeping it all flat. If you angle them in, then we're not going to have a nice sort of square top to the piece. So give them a good press, and then you can hold on to that and get rid of any excess glue. Sorry, my fingers are in the way there, but I'm just trying to hold on to it so it doesn't come apart. So just get rid of the excess. Final squeeze. And then you can just slide that along your work surface, and that can be left to dry. And always slide it along, just because if you pick it up it might just fall apart as the glue isn't yet dry. And then you can do the same with the remaining side piece. So once the legs have dried into place, we're almost ready to begin construction. But we're going to start by making a few pencil marks on some of the pieces, just for placement of the little shelf and the divide. So we'll start with what will become the left-hand side piece. So pop those pieces to one side, turn the piece face down and turn it lengthways like that. So this is the top here, and we're going to make a pencil mark 28.5 millimeters. That's 1 1/8 of an inch from that top edge. When I'm making pencil marks on a piece like this, I never actually make it onto the legs. Otherwise, once the piece is constructed, it can be difficult then to remove the pencil marks. You haven't got a lot of room to get into. So just do your pencil marks actually onto the side piece. So 28.5 millimeters, 1 1/8 of an inch. And then turn the piece the right way around and join those up. Place the rule just below the pencil lines so that you're allowing for the thickness of the pencil nib. And there, I've just done the little pencil line onto the actual side piece there and not onto the legs. So pop that to one side and then bring in the back piece, and we're going to make a pencil mark 30 millimeters from the left hand edge, and that is 1 3/16 of an inch. So do a little pencil mark top and bottom, 30 millimeters, 1 3/16 of an inch, and then again turn and join that up like that, and that's where our divide will sit. And then our little shelf is going to sit across here, so we want to do that line again that is 28.5 millimeters from the top, and just in this left hand section. Again from the top of the piece, 28.5 millimeters, just in this left hand section, and that is 1 1/8 of an inch. Turn that the right way around and again join that up. So you'll have a piece that looks like that on the back. And then pop that to one side as well, and then you want to bring in the top and bottom piece. And this is the two pieces that are identical, cut from your 1.5 millimeter sheet wood. And then left there you've got the little shelf, which is the square piece, and the divide, which is smaller than those pieces. So it's those two identical pieces now, and we want to do that 30 millimeter pencil line from the left hand edge of each piece. So 30 millimeters, 1 1/8 of an inch. And that will just help us line up that divide when we're fixing the piece together. So do your little pencil line, 30 millimeters, 1 3/16 of an inch from the left hand side. Join that up, and with this piece you can take that onto the front edge of the piece, and I always do it on both edges, just depends which way around you put them. Same with that one. And now we're ready to begin construction. Okay, so we're going to begin by attaching the back piece to the left hand side, and so that it sits along the join between the side piece and the leg, and we'll have a little bit of overhanging leg then at the back there to create that little lip, the same as we've got at the side. So apply glue along the edge of the back piece, and that's the left hand edge, so the edge that you've drawn your little line on the side that you've drawn your line on. So pop that into place, making sure you've got a nice flush line at the top, and so that it's sitting along the join between the two pieces, and your pencil lines will line up as well. Just need to move that back a little bit, and there as well. Press that into place, and then you can take a clean cocktail stick and remove the glue along the joins, making sure that you don't knock anything out of place. Always sort of be having a look and make sure that things are staying where they should. Before the glue dries, things can sort of pop out of place, so keep an eye on what's going on. And then we're then going to take one of the two identical pieces that we've drawn the line down, and this will become our top piece, and it's going to sit on the inside edge there so that the pencil line is on the inside edge. So apply glue to a long and a short edge. And then pop that into place so that it's sitting right at the top of the pieces. You can get your side bit lined up first, just use your finger to go along there and make sure you've got a nice flush line along the top there, and then you can manoeuvre the back piece, and by pressing those pieces together you're squaring the whole piece up. So give those a press into place. And the camera battery's just started flashing, so that's a good chance now to leave this to dry for a moment while I change the battery. Again, don't forget to remove the excess glue from along the joints. So we're now going to put that little shelf piece into place, and that's going to sit above those little pencil lines, which are sort of almost central there. And with the little shelf, you'll notice in the cutting list that I advise to cut so that the grain is in the direction of the shortest edge, and that's because the shortest edge is going to be visible at the front of the unit, and the edge that's in the direction of the grain is always the neatest. So if you're cutting a piece that is sort of longer than it is wider, then always have the grain running along the shorter edge. So apply glue to the side and the back. Around that way, and we're going to sit this so it's just above that pencil line, and when I say above I mean so that you can just sort of see the pencil line underneath the shelf there, and you're sort of almost hiding it. Press the piece into place. I was just pulling that back piece against it there at the back. Push it into that corner a little bit more. Just need to come up to the front a little bit, and you've got time to sort of jiggle things around before the glue begins to take. So now use the bottom piece just to prop the unit up, so you're sort of putting it between the mouldings on the back piece there, and so that's so we've got a nice firm back to now attach the divide to. So begin by applying glue along the edge of that shelf. Got the camera in the wrong position here because I can't get in, like that, and then along a short and long edge of the divide. And then pop that into place using that line as a guide, and this will be sitting on the sort of this side of the line. So have a peep inside, make sure it's in the right place. You can use the little line on the top piece there as well to make sure it's sitting straight from top to bottom, and then press it against the side of that shelf without sort of knocking it out of place. Press and hold, and then I want to get in there and remove any excess glue. I'm just going to reposition that at the bottom, so that is now exactly along that pencil line in there. So you can now slide out that bottom piece, and we'll now put that into place. So again, begin by applying a line of glue along the bottom of the divide. And then along the side and back of the bottom piece, so that the pencil line again will be facing the inside. So get that into position. Make sure you're pressing it right into that corner, and make sure you've got a nice flush line along the side there as well, and then you can give it a press. Press it against the bottom of the divide as well. And I'm going to turn that onto its side like that so we can attach the remaining side piece, but I just want to let that dry off just for a moment. Okay, so now I'll apply glue to the open edge, and I've got my masking tape and scissors here to hand, and we'll put a bit of masking tape on once the side is attached, just to hold it all together whilst the glue dries. So bring in your side. Get the top lined up first, and you want to make sure you've got a nice flush line along the top edge there, but also along that front edge. And then you can come and have a look at the bottom edge and make sure that that's all lining up as well. You may need to get your finger in there and just sort of pull that down a bit. That a press. I'm just going to really carefully pick that up and get rid of any excess glue. Quite a bit coming out at the back there. Look from the top, make sure you've got that nice flush line. And then just remove any excess glue from inside as well. Okay, so I'm going to pop that back down onto the first side again. And I'm going to put a piece of masking tape first of all straight over the side. Like that. And then lay it on the back, and I'm going to put a piece right over the centre. It will really pull the whole piece together there. Okay, so that can now be left to dry. Once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry, remove the masking tape, and then you can give the unit a gentle sand all over. And I even sand face down, so holding the piece against your sandpaper, go around in small circular motions, and that will ensure that all of the front edges are nice and flush. And we now want to measure the opening and cut the piece for the door. So measure the height and the width of the door opening, and then deduct 1/4 millimetre from the height, and that will be the height that you need to cut the door, but leave the width as it is. And then when we come to round one long edge for the hinged edge of the door, that will deduct enough so that we haven't got too tight a fit in there. So here's my piece, and when you've actually cut it, it should just fit in there really nicely. So a little bit tight at the moment until we round off that one long edge, but you should have a really nice fit in there. It should obviously be able to hold itself in. Let me pop that out again. So what we're going to do now is round this one long edge, which will become the hinged edge, and that just enables the door to open and close more smoothly. So pop that out of the way. Bring in your sandpaper. Hold the door against it at a 45-degree angle, and as you sweep it towards you, bring it into an upright position. As you can see, that's started to round over, and 5 sweeps is probably about all you need, just until you've got a nice little rounded edge there. And then you want to do the same thing on the underside of the piece. So do that again on the other side. And if I just show you that from the top, you can see there how you've got that nice rounded edge along there. And then what you can do is finish that piece off in your hand with a piece of finer grade sandpaper, and that will get rid of any little pulls like I've got there. So we're now going to make pencil marks for where we want to drill the holes for the hinges. So we'll start at the top, and you want to come in from that right hand edge there, actually of the top piece, not of the leg, and do a little pencil mark 1.5 millimeters or 1/16 of an inch in. So do a line like that, and then turn the piece and work back along that line again by 1.5 millimeters, 1/16 of an inch, and then you want to do a little dot. Oops. Like that, and that's where we'll drill our hole. You then want to do the same thing at the bottom edge. So turn it that way, so come in again by the 1.5. Do your line and then turn and do your little dot. 1.5 millimeters, 1/16 of an inch, like that. To drill the holes, I'm going to be using a 0.75 millimeter drill bit. That's 1/32 of an inch, but you just want one of your smallest drill bits that's going to be about the thickness of a dressmaking pin, which is what we're going to be using for the hinges. So hold that upright over your little pencil dot and just very carefully drill down without putting too much pressure on that bottom piece. Like that, and the same at the top there. Oops. Bit squeaky, like that. So now you want to position the door into place so that the rounded edge is on that right hand edge, and so that it's sitting right towards the front of the unit there, like that. And then if you sort of squeeze together the top and bottom of the unit, that will hold it into place. And if you find that it's sort of pushing back, just sort of tap it so that it goes towards the front. And then you can hold it into place like that. Bring in a dressmaking pin and we're going to pop that into the hole. We don't want to actually make a hole into the door, but we just want to make a little mark so that we can see where we need to drill the hole. So you don't need to push it all the way in, but just so you can feel it going into the top of the door there. Keep hold of it and then we'll do the same at the bottom. I think that's sort of gone in a little bit, so I'm just sort of trying to hook it out a little bit with the pin, like that, and then again push the pin in so you're just going into the bottom of the door, like that. You can then take the pins out, pop the door out again, and there you can see we've just got those little marks in the top and bottom, and that's where we will drill our holes. So to do that, secure your door nice and tightly into a desk vise, and I always have this piece of kitchen towel in here just to stop the jaws of the vise from marking the wood. You then want to hold the drill upright again over the little hole and drill down, keeping the drill upright because you don't want to sort of split through the wood of the door. And you want to go down by about 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch, and I know when I get sort of to the centre of the drill bit that I've gone down far enough. But just to check that you have, you can take one of your dressmaking pins, pop that into the hole, put your nail at the top there and pull it out, and then you can see that you've gone down far enough, and that's plenty there. And then turn it over and do the same thing again at the other end. So the unit and the door can now be put to one side and they're ready for paint. And I always like to paint the pieces separately. Not only can you sort of get inside more easily, but you can also get along the edge of the door. So once the piece is complete, you don't have any of that natural wood showing. But before we get the paint out, we're going to prepare the top piece. And with this piece, we're going to bevel one long edge and both short edges. So to do that, hold the piece at a 45-degree angle against your sandpaper, and as you sweep it towards you, keep it in that position. You can see there that's just starting to bevel off, but you want to continue until you've got a nice sharp bevel along there. Like that, and then do the same thing along each side. You can then finish that piece off again in your hand with a piece of finer grade sandpaper, just to really tidy up the edges. So these pieces are now ready for paint, and to make it easier to paint the top, If you turn it so that the beveled side is facing upwards, you can make yourself a little masking tape handle. So cut a strip of masking tape and apply it to the back of the piece, making a little loop like that to hold on to. And then I just stick a couple of extra pieces at each end just to hold that into place. Like that. You can then hold onto the handle so that you can paint around the outside edges of the underside, which will be visible once the piece is in place. You can then obviously paint the top, and that will then act as a prop whilst the piece is drying. So actually, before we paint, I almost forgot, we need to attach a doorknob. So pop the door back into place again. And then I just want to make a little pencil mark level with the shelf. So just sort of come along, probably a couple of millimetres away like that. And that's where we need to drill the hole for the doorknob. For my doorknob, I'm going to be using this little turned wooden knob, which is 2.5 millimetres in diameter, or 3/32 of an inch. And you want to measure the little stem there, the part that goes into the door, and that's the size of the drill bit that you'll need. Now this is about 2 millimetres, and my largest drill bit is 1.6. So I'll show you what to do in that instance. So drill your hole. Once the door starts to turn like that, it means you're through. So push the drill bit all the way through, and then I just sort of gently jiggle it around like that, and that just makes the hole a little bit bigger. What you can then do is try the doorknob into place. Press that in like that. And that's actually a nice fit in there. But if you're finding that it's still too tight, what you can actually do is just poke a cocktail stick into the hole and give that a bit of a jiggle as well, and that will just widen the hole and you'll be able to get the doorknob in. Now, even though that is a nice tight fit, I'm going to just pop a little bit of glue in there. I don't know if you can hear that, but let me show you that rain. Pouring out there today. Typical autumn English weather. So I'm just going to dot a little bit of glue to the hole like that, and then pop that into place. Make sure as well that it's sitting flat against the door, otherwise you'll have a wonky doorknob. Like that. And now we really are ready to paint. And for my cupboard, I'm using North Pole White, which is the colour I used for the little desk, also in the craft room. So I've applied one coat of paint to each of those pieces, and they're now drying. Once that's dried, I'll give them all a gentle sand and then apply a second coat just to the visible areas. So once your paint has dried and you've given everything a gentle sand, we're ready to attach the door. So begin by pushing a dressmaking pin into each of the drilled holes. Give them a push down on your work surface to make sure that they're all the way in, but don't push them in too hard because you don't want them to split through the wood. And then bring in your pliers and cut those to about 3 millimetres or 1/8 of an inch long. Like that. Take another dressmaking pin and just poke it through the holes in the unit, just to make sure there's no paint stuck in there. Same at the bottom there. And then lay the unit down and remove the pin from the bottom of the door. And push that top pin up through the top of the unit there. That lined up, And you may find as well that you need to do a little bit of extra sanding around your door once you've applied the paint. It might be a little bit too tight, so do any sanding obviously beforehand. Get the door then sitting into place, and then you can insert the remaining pin. If you've got the door lined up in the frame where it should go, then this bit should be quite easy. But if it's slightly out, as I think mine is, then you might find it takes a little bit of time to get the hole in the right place, or to get the pin in the right place. So you might just have to keep moving your door around until you actually find the drilled hole, until they line up. So that's just gone in there. So don't push it all the way in. Leave some of it hanging out like that, and then try the door. And I always say that because if you push it all the way in and then you find that you've got a problem with the door, you can't get the pins out again. So it's always best to have a practice run first, and then you can push the pins all the way in, and the one at the top as well. Make sure that's pushed right down so we won't have any problems attaching the top. There. And we can now attach the top of the unit. So apply glue to the top of the unit, and I've got my masking tape and my clamps to hand here to secure this piece once it's in place. Make sure you spread the glue right along the edges of the unit. Like that. And then we're going to attach the top part so that the straight or unbeveled edge is at the back of the unit and flush with the back of the legs. And then we'll have an even overhang at each side. So pick it up and make sure you've got the same amount overhanging at each side. And that's usually the thickness of that bevel. So if you look from the side, the bevel should run on along with that line in the leg. And that's a good way to tell that they're sitting in the right place. Making sure it's staying where it should. I'm just going to grab another cocktail stick and remove that bit of excess glue from around there. Hold on to it nice and tightly as you're doing that. And I've got some areas on here that I need to apply a little bit more paint to. I just sanded a little bit too heavily on the front of my door and along these legs at the side. So once I've attached the top, or once I've removed the masking tape, I'll just do a really light coat over all the visible areas just to make it look nice and bright again. So press that into place. Let's get that glue out of the way. And then I'm going to put a bit of masking tape straight over the top. Pull it nice and tightly. Press it onto the sides. And then have a look around the back, and if you think that the top is lifting, and I think mine is at that side, then you can put a couple of bits of tape over the back as well. So one there like that, and I'm going to put one at the other side just to keep it all even. Like that. And then along the front we're going to use clamps just to hold that into place nice and tightly. So carefully open your door, and then, you know my old saying, put on as many clamps as you can. Don't want any gapping along the front edge. I'll get another one in there and then one more in this left hand side. Put that on its back, and that can be left to dry. And there is the completed unit. And it's a really simple little cupboard, and designed, as I said in the intro there, to go under that sloping roof part in my craft room attic. But this is another of those pieces that you could slightly change to make it fit your room. So you could make it a lot wider if you have a larger wall space to fill. Or if you're quite adept at making doll's house furniture, then you could even have it so you've got a cupboard on the other side as well and do like a double unit. And again, I also said in the intro about having some baskets in here, and I wanted to add something there to add a bit of colour, but I'll do that now with the accessories, and I'm really looking forward to putting lots of little folders and things in and lots of little crafty bits. Similar to how I did my little craft shed, and we'll cram as much into the room as we can. But I thought what we'd do is get the furniture done and then we'll start adding all the accessories. So all there is left to do now is go and try this into place. And that is going to sit just there. Well, I think that looks really nice along there. And I'm planning on having lots of brightly coloured accessories and crafty bits in this room, which will go really nicely with the white furniture. Now, if you have a sloping roof like this and you want to make a little unit, then just measure the highest area you can go to before your roof and the width. So you'd come to sort of a point here and then measure the height and the width from your other piece of furniture, or in my case the chimney breast there. And that's what I did here, so it just fits really nicely in there. I can even come that way a little bit more. And then what I thought we'd have over this side, just to make it a little bit different, is a sort of sloping drawer unit. So we'll have like 2, 3 and 4 drawers and fit it exactly in with that sloping roof. And although I'm making them specifically for my attic, you might have an area in your house that you could use a little sloping drawer unit, or you might have something like this where you need something to fit exactly into that space. But I'm really pleased with that little unit, and I'm really pleased with how the craft room is coming along. Just looking at it there, it looks like a little room that I'd really like to go into and shut the door and get to work on some bits and pieces. So I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and that's something that you can use in your doll's house, whether it's in a craft room or another room in the house. But that's it for today. So take care, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!